Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something a little different. We're stripping away the emotional headlines, all the political rhetoric, the bumper sticker slogans around a topic everyone thinks they understand.
But almost no one actually does.
Exactly. The Canadian refugee system.
It's definitely one of those subjects where the gap between, let's say, public perception, that Canadian dream marketing, and the legal reality on the ground is, well, it's a canyon.
It really is a canyon.
Yeah.
I think most of us grow up with this image of Canada as, like, the global sanctuary. The friendly neighbor, back door unlocked, kettles on for anyone in trouble.
Right.
But we've been going through this massive stack of documents from Dara Immigration Services, and these are folks who are in the trenches of this system every single day here in 2026, and the picture they paint is just, it's stark. It's less open house and, frankly, more fortress.
That is a very, very accurate way to frame it. The source material from Dara really makes it clear that while the humanitarian reputation is there, the history is there. The actual machinery, the specific legal levers you have to pull to get in and stay in, it's become incredibly rigid.
Yeah.
We're looking at a system that's defined by exclusion just as much as inclusion.
And the phrase that kept hitting me in the notes was the legal shield. It's not just about asking for help. It's about building a defense. So our mission today is to kind of reverse engineer that shield.
Okay.
We need to understand the insanely high cost of the invite-only path, the invisible walls at the border, and the specific tiny paperwork errors that are getting people deported in 2026.
And we should be clear about the stakes right up front. This is not some administrative process like, renewing a driver's license.
Well,
It's a high-stakes adversarial legal battle. The burden of proof is entirely on the person fleeing. If you lose, the consequence isn't a fine. It's being sent back to a place where you might be killed.
so let's start with the architecture of the system. The sources describe two completely different lanes. I think most listeners, myself included, assume a refugee is a refugee.
Right, that the label is universal.
Yeah, but the system treats you totally differently depending on where you are when you apply, right?
That distinction is the single most important concept to grasp. You have two distinct legal categories, resettlement and asylum.
Resettlement and asylum.
If you mix these up, you just don't understand the system. Think of it as the difference between being formally invited to a dinner party versus showing up at the front door, knocking, and just hoping there's enough food left.
Okay, that's a great analogy. Let's look at the invite first. This is resettlement. The big takeaway for me here was just how exclusive it is.
It is exclusive. Resettlement happens entirely outside Canada, and this is crucial. You cannot apply directly to the Canadian government for this.
You can't just go online.
No, you can't go to a website, download a PDF, and say, please resettle me. You have to be referred. Usually that's by the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, or through a private sponsor.
Okay, this is where I ran into the acronyms GAR and PSR. GAR is the government side.
Right. GAR is government-assisted refugees. These are people the UN has flagged as the most vulnerable, say, victims of torture, women at risk in conflict zones. The Canadian government flies them in and supports them for 1 year.
And the other side, the PSR.
The PSR private sponsorship of refugees. That's where the real complexity lies for everyday Canadians.
Yeah, let's dig into this group of five concept. It sounds like such a quirky, grassroots Canadian thing, like 5 random people neighbors, a book club, a hockey team can just decide to bring a refugee family over.
In theory, yes. It is unique to Canada, and it's a program the world often looks at with envy. But looking at the 2026 guidelines from Dara Immigration, we have to dispel the myth that this is just casual charity.
It's not just dropping off a casserole.
Exactly. It's not signing a petition. It is a legally binding financial contract.
The numbers in the report were just eye-watering. People assume the government pays, but that's not the case with private sponsorship at all.
Not at all. To sponsor a standard family of 4, the group isn't just promising to help. They have to raise liquid cash. We're talking approximately 29 to 35,000 Canadian dollars.
Wow.
And place it in a trust fund before the application is even approved.
Wait, so you can't just say, don't worry, I've got a spare room, I'll buy groceries. The government wants to see cold, hard cash in the bank.
That's right. The government is risk-averse. They want to guarantee that this family will not end up on social assistance on welfare during their first year. The sponsors are the social safety net.
And it's competitive on top of that.
Highly competitive. There are caps, quotas on how many applications are accepted annually.
So you have groups with the money ready to go,
Yeah.
and they're basically fighting for a quota spot just to save a family.
Yes, and it shifts the dynamic completely. It turns humanitarianism into a resource competition. You need the money, the organization, and the timing to hit that very narrow quota window.
Okay, so that's the invite path. Expensive, competitive, but orderly. Now let's talk about the path that generates all the headlines. The asylum path.
The In-Canada Asylum Program.
This is the showing up at the door scenario.
Correct. And there's one hard, fast rule here that trips people up constantly. You must be physically present on Canadian soil to claim asylum.
You can't do it from abroad.
You cannot walk into the Canadian embassy in London or Cairo or Tokyo and say, I need protection. They will turn you away. You have to be here.
But getting here is the problem, isn't it? If you don't have a visa, you can't get on a plane. And if you try to cross the land border, well, that's where we run into the wall.
The Safe Third Country Agreement, the STCA.
I remember hearing about this for years, especially with Roxham Road in Quebec, where thousands of people were walking across. But the notes say that whole era is dead.
It is effectively over. The context shifted dramatically in March 2023 and has now solidified in 2026. Before, the agreement only applied at official border posts, so if you crossed through a field, an irregular crossing, you could claim asylum.
The loophole.
That loophole is closed.
Closed how? Fences. Or just legally?
Legally.
Yeah.
The agreement now covers the entire land, border fields, forests, waterways, train tracks, everything.
So play this out for me. Someone flees persecution, they land in New York, they take a bus to the border, and walk across a frozen field into Manitoba. A Mountie finds them. What happens next?
If they're caught within 14 days of crossing, they are deemed ineligible to make a claim, period. They're handed back to U.S. authorities.
14 days. Why such a specific number?
It's a jurisdiction buffer. The logic, and it's very controversial, is that the U.S. is a safe country. So if you were in the U.S., you should have claimed asylum there. Canada views anyone bypassing the U.S. system as asylum shopping.
So the door is basically shut for anyone coming north through the States.
Almost. And this is where that legal shield concept is so vital. There are exceptions, but you have to know them before you cross.
Okay. What gets you through the wall? What's the magic password?
The anchor exception is the biggest one. Family. If you have a qualifying family member already in Canada, a spouse, parent, sibling, aunt, uncle, you're exempt.
So blood ties override the agreement.
Yes. There are also exceptions for unaccompanied minors or if you're from a country where you face the death penalty. But for the vast majority of people fleeing general violence who don't have family here, that land border is a dead end.
All right, let's assume someone makes it. Maybe they flew to Toronto on a visitor visa, or they had that aunt in Montreal. They're on Canadian soil. They raise their hand, say, I claim refugee status. I think the assumption is, okay, you're safe now.
Right.
You made it.
Yeah. But the source material suggests this is actually when the real danger starts, the legal danger.
That's right. Getting in is just the prologue. Now the clock starts ticking on the bureaucracy, and your life suddenly revolves around one piece of paper. The brown paper.
That sounds ominous. Is it actually brown? Historically, it was. It's officially the Refugee Protection Claimant document. And this thing is your lifeline. It proves you're here legally while your case is processed. Without it, you are basically invisible.
You can't see a doctor, anything like that.
Can't see a doctor, can't get a bank account. The notes mention the IFHP, the Interim Federal Health Program. That's your temporary coverage. But here's the misconception I want to smash.
Okay.
We hear it all the time. People think asylum seekers come here and just live off the dole. The sources from Dara highlight that the system actually needs them to work.
Right, I saw that, the open work permit.
Yes. Once your claim is referred to the Refugee Board, you can apply for a work permit. The fee is waived. Why? Because government support is minimal. It's barely survival level. The government wants claimants working and paying taxes while they wait.
They're funding their own wait.
Exactly.
And that wait. We're going to get to the 2026 reality of those wait times because they are shocking. But first, the paperwork. There's this basis of claim form, the BOC. Why is it described as a trap?
Because it locks you in. The BOC is a detailed narrative of exactly who you are, what happened to you, why you can't go back. If you claim at the airport, you have exactly 15 days to fill this out.
15 days. Imagine you've just fled a war zone, you're traumatized, you're in shelter, and you have 2 weeks to write the most important legal argument of your life.
Exactly. And you cannot just change your story later. This brings us to the most dramatic part of the whole process, the hearing. This is where the rubber meets the road.
And the number one reason for failure.
Credibility. The Refugee Board is trained to look for inconsistencies. They will compare your oral testimony at the hearing with that BOC form you wrote maybe 18 months ago, in a panic.
This part stressed me out just reading it. The example they gave was the June versus July discrepancy.
Right. Let's say in your written statement you said the cartel threatened your family in June, but at the hearing you're under oath, you're nervous, and you say it was July.
Does that really matter? I mean, trauma affects memory.
Yeah.
I forget things all the time.
Scientifically, yes. Legally, it's a massive problem. The board can rule that because of that one discrepancy, your testimony is not credible. The logic is, if this truly happened to you, you would remember the details.
So they can just throw out the whole claim.
They can reject your entire claim. You could be sent back to a death threat because you got the month wrong.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a test of performance as much as it is a test of truth.
Performance is a very good word for it. And it's not just memory. There are these other legal hurdles that are completely counterintuitive. The hardest one to explain is the IFA, the internal flight alternative.
This is the why didn't you just move rule.
Precisely. You are not a refugee if your own country has a safe spot for you. Let's say you're fleeing gang violence in Mexico City. You prove the danger is real. The Canadian government can still say, okay, Mexico City is dangerous, but what about Merida? Could you have moved there instead?
So I have to prove that the entire country of Mexico is unsafe for me.
Yes. If there's one city where you could reasonably live and be safe, Canada's position is that you should go there. You have to prove that the agent of persecution, the gang, the corrupt police, has the reach to find you anywhere.
That seems like an impossibly high bar.
It is. And then there's state protection. You have to prove you ask your home government for help first.
But what if the police are the ones you're running from?
You have to prove that. The legal presumption is that states can protect their citizens. You need clear and convincing evidence that you went to the police and they refused to help, or that going to them would have been suicidal. If you just assumed they wouldn't help, your claim fails.
So, okay, let's recap the gauntlet. Survive the escape, navigate the border, file perfect paperwork in 15 days, prove you can't live anywhere else in your own country, and then you just wait.
And in 2026, you wait a very, very long time.
What are the numbers looking like now? I feel like we hear about the backlog every year.
It's the year of limbo. The data shows the wait time just to get that hearing, the day you actually sit in front of the judge, is hovering between 16 to 24 months.
2 years, just to present your case.
Yes. And that entire time, you're living in uncertainty. You're working, paying taxes, but you don't know if you'll be allowed to stay. And here's the kicker. If you win, you're still not a permanent resident.
Wait, I thought winning meant you were in.
Winning means you won't be deported. But to get permanent residence, the PR card that lets you really settle, you have to apply separately. And the processing time for that is running another 30 to 45 months.
Okay, do the math for me.
Yeah.
2 years for the hearing, almost 4 for the PR. We're talking about half a decade.
Easily 5 to 6 years from the day you land until the day you are a permanent resident. That's 5 years where you can't really plan your future.
The source material mentioned a specific 2026 initiative about this backlog, something about 115,000 people.
Yes. The government realized this was becoming a political and humanitarian disaster. So for 2026, they've set a target to transition 115,000 existing protected persons, people who have already won their cases, to permanent residents.
That sounds like good news, though.
It is good news for those 115,000 people. But in a system with finite resources, everything is a trade-off. Prioritizing them means fewer resources for processing new arrivals. So if you're landing at the airport today, you're entering the back of a line that's moving slower than ever.
And you're paying for it eventually. The asylum claim is free, but the PR application costs money.
$575 per adult, plus fees for medicals, police certificates. It all adds up.
I want to pivot to a couple of specific curiosities from the FAQs. The first one is climate refugees. With everything going on in the world, you'd think this would be a massive category.
It's a massive category of human displacement, but legally, in Canada, it doesn't exist.
Really? A flat no.
A flat no. The definition of a refugee comes from the 1951 Geneva Convention. It was written for a post-World War II world. It protects people fleeing persecution based on 5 grounds: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or social group.
And my island is sinking doesn't fit.
My island is sinking, or drought destroyed my farm does not fit into those boxes. Unless that scarcity causes a civil war and you're persecuted in that war because of your ethnicity, then you might have a claim. But the disaster itself is not grounds for asylum.
The law hasn't caught up to the planet.
Not even close.
Here's the other one that blew my mind. The no-visit rule. Reavailment.
This is the trap that catches people who think they've already won the game.
So explain the scenario. You're a refugee. You've got your status, maybe your PR card. You hear your mother is sick back home. You fly back for a week to say goodbye. What happens?
You risk losing everything.
Why? You're a permanent resident. You have the card.
Because you told Canada, I am terrified of my home country. If I go back, I will be persecuted. If you voluntarily go back, even for a funeral, Canada views that as proof that your fear was not genuine. You have re-availed yourself of your country's protection.
And they can revoke your status.
They can. They can strip your refugee status, revoke your permanent residence, and deport you. Dara Immigration warns about this explicitly. Once you're a refugee, you are effectively in exile. You cannot go home until you're a full Canadian citizen.
That is so heavy. It really drives home that this isn't just a work visa. It is a severance from your past life.
Exactly.
So when we step back and look at this whole deep dive, the paths, the costs, the border wall, the memory test, the 5-year wait, what's the big picture here?
For me, the takeaway is that we need to stop thinking of the refugee system as a soft system. It is not a charity dispenser. It is a rigid, adversarial, legal machine designed to filter people out.
It feels like it's designed to find the no rather than the yes.
It's designed to find the perfect victim with perfect evidence, perfect memory, who fits perfectly into a definition written in 1951. If you're messy, if your memory is foggy, if your flight path was irregular, if your danger is environmental, you don't fit.
It's a fortress, a polite one with paperwork and hearings, but a fortress nonetheless.
And that leads to a provocative thought for everyone listening. We're living in a world of increasing instability, climate collapse, political polarization. But our legal definition of who deserves safety hasn't changed in 75 years.
We're using a 20th century key for a 21st century lock.
Exactly. So as the world gets more chaotic and more people need to move, the legal shield we've built is only going to get tighter. We have to ask ourselves, is this system actually protecting the vulnerable?
Or has it evolved to protect the border from the vulnerable?
That's the question. Is it about keeping the numbers manageable at the cost of human reality?
Is the bureaucracy serving the humanitarian ideal or strangling it?
That's what we have to decide.
Well, that is a lot to process. I want to say a huge thank you to the team at Dara Immigration Services for the source material. It really shines a light on the fine print.
It's always in the details.
Thanks for listening to this Deep Dive, everyone. Take care of yourselves, check your sources, and we'll see you in the next one.